Hi everyone, it's Karl. Welcome back to the Apparent Faith video series. This is in conjunction with my book, Apparent Faith, What Fatherhood Taught Me About the Father's Heart. This specific episode is called Original Good and Parenting. When my second grandchild was born, his name is Jackson. When he was born 8 weeks premature, I wondered if I would have the same feelings about him that I had about Holland. Holland was my first grandchild. She was born a couple years ago, and terribly moving. It was just a moving experience to have a grandchild. But then Jackson was born 8 weeks premature, and I wondered, would I have the same emotions, the same feelings that I had about Holland? When he was born, he was innocent, he was good, and he was precious. And he was exactly like he was supposed to be. In a way, it's what every parent experiences. I just saw God in his eyes. The creation story says that creation was deemed good. And then when man was created, he was deemed very good. That was the creation stories. And I have the same reaction when I see a baby. When I see their little fingernails and their toes, and I think, man, that's really good. That is so good. Holland, my granddaughter, is very determined, like her mother was. And she doesn't like to put her gloves on. And I want to tell her mother, just, it's not really worth it because you're not going to win all those battles. And I think she knows that. But when she sits and listens to an Avett Brothers song with me, I remember my daughter, her mother, sitting with my dad, her grandfather, and just seeing that same thing, that very goodness of a child. As a pastor, I would hold babies, and sometimes I was the first one that got to hold the baby. And when I would hold them, I'd see the little fingernails, the little toes, and I would always think the same thing. I think, man, that is so good. What they see in their eyes is unclear at that time, is what I'm told. But what I saw was really clear. It was goodness, it was purity, it was sweetness. But many religions tell a different story. Many of our religions, including the one I came from, said that we were originally bad. As I watched this series about Einstein recently, I think it was called Genius. As I watched this series, I saw the rhetoric, the continual rhetoric that they produced concerning the Jews. And they had to say, over and over again, these people are evil, these people are bad. And they continued that rhetoric just like we have in the Christian church for a long time, that this original bad, that all people are bad, that they're born bad. But we really can't deduce that from creation, and we can't deduce it from looking at our children and our grandchildren. I don't believe anymore that God sees us as originally bad. Certainly we're capable of bad things. Certainly we are capable of accumulating sin and things like that. But God doesn't hide behind his Son to see us any more than we hide behind our children to see our grandchildren. We don't look at them and say, man, they're just originally so horrible. It seems weird or crazy to us to think that way. But I've recently just kind of fallen in love with podcasts, and I blame my children for that. But they, in one of the podcasts I listened to for a while was Richard Rohr. And I'm going to paraphrase what I heard him say in a podcast once. He says, God is not trying to create a new version of ourselves because we are originally bad. God is trying to remove the false self we have accumulated and return us to our true self that is originally good. And that makes a lot more sense to me than that we were originally bad. I think the teasing of our life, the scoldings, and can develop a layer of shame in our life. Our world is also retributive. It returns insult for insult. And so we take all of that from our world and we imagine that God is that same way. But God is not that way. We forget, and I forget, that I was once a baby, that my mother carried down the steps of a clinic and said, "That's good. That was originally good. It's good." One time I wrote a little blog or article called "I Wanted Him to Score a Touchdown." It was about my son. As I watched my son play football, he liked to be the blocking fullback, and he would pave the way for his friend, and his friend ran most of the yards, and my son really didn't carry the ball that much. But one time they got down to the 2-yard line, and for some reason I knew that my son was going to get the football. And I wanted so bad for him to score a touchdown. And I think I was cheering in a way I haven't ever cheered before. But as he got the football, he was quickly enveloped. He didn't make it to the goal line. He wasn't really upset, but I was going crazy in the stands. Parents, I often wondered at those football games and soccer games, are we really doing the right thing? Is it really our job as parents to push them to do more? And sometimes I think we push them too far. We create depression and things and frustration in kids. And I think also the church teaching is that God has this unreachable standard. That God, He creates this standard for us. And then when we don't meet that standard, it drives Him insane. It makes Him even so much as want to torture us forever. That's what the church teaches sometimes. It reminds me of those parents screaming from the stands, "That's not what we expect of you," and just going crazy. And I've seen people just berate their children and frustrate them over a football game or a soccer game. And we go through things like that, and we think God must be disappointed in me. But on the other hand, we see Jesus from the cross, and even the people that crucified Him and killed Him, right before His death, He said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." Every parent of a teenager should learn that phrase, "Father, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing." I remember my children's rebellion briefly. More than their rebellion, I remember the times of reconciliation. Some of my expectations were unrealistic, just like we assume God is. Sometimes they missed the mark. Sometimes they totally missed the mark. But when I adopted a more Christ-like attitude, I found that I had more compassion for them, not more anger towards them. If I can grow into that, then maybe God is already like that. I tried not to exasperate them or frustrate them. Laura would tell me, you're going too far. You're going to frustrate them. Is it right to frustrate them? Is it going to frustrate them? Is it right? Is it best? And the lingering question could probably be this. I want to read this to you from my book. The lingering question in my mind is, why would God set up a system that is doomed from the start? Why would He give us an unreachable goal and then be out of His mind angry about the fact that we cannot reach it? See, that's more like me at my worst than God at His best. I've seen Little League parents that scarred their children for life because of a game, because they had that unreachable standard, something in their mind that their kids couldn't do, and they were just crazy about it when their kids couldn't reach that standard. At Jesus' baptism, the Father said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." That was before His ministry, before He had really done anything. But that was what rested on the Son from the Father. Not performance, it's a decision. Not performance, it's a decision. And it's a decision of love. The real heart of God says that you're good, that you're originally good. Next week, next time, we're going to talk about what God is like.